You want the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth about sports in the state of Michigan?
You can't handle the truth!
Well, we're giving you the Michigan Sports Truth Podcast, the show that provides research and statistics about all the Detroit and Michigan sports teams, whether fans like it or not, and detects, exposes, and reveals actual and hidden facts and truth that the mainstream media doesn't want you to know. No junk, no entertainment, no homerism, no slappiness, no coddling, no pop culture, no conspiracy theories, no opinions, no shilling, and no fluff. Head over to our website at michigansportstruth.weebly.com. Follow us on Twitter, Periscope, and Instagram at Michigan_Truth, and like and share our verified Facebook page, the Michigan Sports Truth Podcast. Also listen to us on Spreaker, SoundCloud, iHeartRadio, Apple Podcasts via iTunes, Google Play on its podcast mobile app, and Spotify. The Michigan Sports Truth Podcast does not represent or defame any of the teams it covers. It only detects, exposes, and reveals honest, actual, and hidden truth, facts, and statistics about them.
And welcome to episode 334 of the Michigan Sports Truth Podcast in audio form on Spreaker. I'm Taylor Phillips, also archived on SoundCloud, iHeartRadio, Apple Podcasts, via iTunes, Google Play on its podcast app, and Spotify. After the live feed is terminated, it'll be archived on all platforms. I'm Taylor Phillips, Buck Gino and Ed Smith on Facebook Messenger. Follow me on Twitter at DT2Phillips. And on Instagram as well. Follow Ed Smith on Twitter and Instagram at EdSmith313. And follow Buck Gino on Twitter at BuckGino3, 3 I's for Roman numerals. So, got some more football to recap, but first off, a very, very interesting topic involving the Tigers and Red Wings owner Chris Ilitch.
That one is long gone!
I heard from Jason Beck from MLB.com that Chris Ilitch is proud of the Tigers' rebuild, and Jeff Moss at the Detroit Sports Rag, may I recall, right off the bat, pointed out that the Tigers' rebuild is off to a disastrous start. We point out the statistics, and Chris Ilitch is still proud of the rebuilding process, no matter how disastrous it may be to us. Chris Ilitch just again believes in confidence, not the truth. He just believes in his own confidence. So, guys, Chris Ilitch always thinks that everything is sunshine, rainbows, and unicorns, peaches and cream. While it's not. So, Ed, we'll start with you.
Well, it's one thing for Chris Ilitch to have optimism, but it's another thing to have complete plausible deniability of everything that's around you and the surroundings about your situation. For him to credit Al Avila as doing a good job and saying that he likes the work that he's doing, he's professional, he knows what he's doing, he's put a lot of energy into it, and he's doing a great job. That seems the statement of someone like that would sound like he's completely out of touch from what's really happening going on. Al Avila has not done a great job. He's being moved to be the full-term general manager. In fact, if you were asked a lot of people, you would say he's done a mediocre to subpar job at best. So it's not like he's doing doing a great in terms of being is it a downgrade from David Dombrowski? Absolutely. So,
hey, Buck, mute yourself. Yep. Ed, continue.
Yeah, so those comments, the way that's phrased and worded, it just gives off a touch of someone who's completely out of touch, doesn't know what the heck he's talking about, and questions a lot of things in regards to reality. And then he goes on to say things like, when you go through a rebuilding period, attendance and television ratings are two areas we knew would be impacted. Like, really, that's the first thing that came to your mind, not the idea oh wow, our fans have gone through so much. Our window's closed, and boy, this is going to be a rough transition period for our fans. No, the first thing that came to your mind was attendance numbers and TV ratings. So again, another example of how out of touch Chris Ilitch really is. And I will say that in terms of one point of the rebuild being an adequate job, is the fact that you've been so terrible enough that you've gotten in good draft spots to get some good players, like Casey Vines, for instance. That's how you're able to get guys like Verlander in the spot that you were in because you were a terrible team for a number of period of years. So there's one aspect of a rebuild working properly, but still there's another aspect, and this is where, Mike, Chris's dad, did a much better job at, as, having the will and the nerve to spend the money when it was needed and absolutely a must to help upgrade your team and make it to a more viable contender instead of being stuck in the basement or mired in mediocrity for an endless number of years. So what have we seen from Chris that demonstrates he has that same type of nerve that his father had? Absolutely none. Let's not forget, he was the one who, it was his idea essentially, who wanted to cut costs and slash salaries, which led to the infamous Doug Fister trade. Okay? His fingerprints were all over that, and there's many other moves that have been made in the past few years since that has his fingerprints all over it. So when you say and hear him or you see him use these type of words and language, it really gives off a sense of, wow, this is a guy who just seems so delusional it's not even funny, or he doesn't care and he's just waiting for the right person to come along with the right offer to buy the team. That's all I get from that.
Yeah. This is just giving people, the fans, the aneurysms that they don't deserve. Buck, I'm pretty sure you're getting an aneurysm too.
Well, a couple of things. Number one, a rebuild does not happen in 1 year. Baseball is one of those sports where, with free agency being the way it is, and with the minor league system currently structured, these are not things that happen instantaneously. So the rebuild, to grade the rebuild as it stands now, I mean, truthfully, they're in year one. Last year was not part of the rebuild. When you talk about guys that were in the system for the full year, players that were on the active roster that are expected to develop and contribute in years afterwards. So technically, this is the year one of the rebuild because it started with the Verlander, Kinsler, Upton, J.D. Martinez trades. And the guys that they got in those obviously are not really meant to make an impact this year. Now, there are guys that are playing in that have come from those trades. I forgot to mention the Avila, Justin Wilson trade. But that's where the rebuild starts. So you're technically in year one, coming to the end of year one right now. So to grade the rebuild as a success or a failure, it's really too early to tell because this is something that, whether you disagree with it or not, the rebuild that they've chosen to take is strip down the major league roster almost bare for all they can get in terms of assets, and also getting high draft picks such as Casey Mize and what projects to be a top 10 pick this year. Well, actually, it'll happen next year, but you're looking at a rebuild now that is in its infant stages. So to say that you're proud of the rebuild, it's really too hard to make that judgment right now. Now, in 2 more seasons, when you're looking at 2020, that's when you can start to look at it and say, yeah, we did the right things, or no, we made some missteps, we need to change course. And that's when you really can tell the true effectiveness of the rebuild. All of that said, for Chris Ilitch to come out and say that kind of thing, just like I alluded to, he's not concerned about the product that he's putting on the field right now. He's concerned about TV ratings, revenue, all these tertiary type of
gimmicks
of statistics and things that would lead you to believe that there's a success. I mean, to put it in some different parlance, that'd be like somebody saying that they've fixed the economy by saying that jobs are up. Well, that's only one very small piece of it. So to say that the rebuild is a success or that he's proud of his rebuild, well, he's probably proud that he was able to slash salary, cut the payroll down to, I wouldn't say a bare minimum, but one of the lower payrolls in the league from one of the highest, and maintain his revenue margin. So that's what it reads like to me. So what he's saying is that he was able to keep his pockets lined where his revenue from the TV side and other things have outpaced the salaries that they cut and the talent that they let walk or that they traded on to other teams. So that's not how you gauge success in a rebuild. That's just not how it's done. It's the product on the field. And like you guys have said, Mike Ilitch was never afraid really to spend the money that he had because he wanted a winner. Now, obviously, the tenor has changed from the Tigers. They're not in a championship window anymore. They probably haven't been for the last 3 years. And we all know that that window has closed. I think he's probably the final person to have realized that, unfortunately. But this statement that he's made tells me that they're for sure not even close to really fully realizing the potential of this rebuild. Because if you're telling me that you're grading it as success based on the fact that your revenues outpaced what you were able to get rid of, and you're seeing it as a net gain, that's great for you. That's great for you, the owner. But how is that for the fans? I mean, they're basically giving tickets away at this point. You can basically walk up to Comerica Park at any point in time and get tickets for basically what you would pay for lunch at McDonald's. And that's a success? No, it's not a success. To be proud of something like that tells me that you're happy that your bottom line hasn't been hurt. And so if they're going to continue on this path, what you're telling me is that you're going to kind of go along the lines of the Florida Marlins and the Pittsburgh Pirates of the world, where you get young talent, you don't have to pay them much, and as soon as they show any promise or that you have to come time to write them the big check, they might be gone because that's going to hurt your revenue. So, the theme of this show and really a lot of the dialogue that we've had is centered around Chris Ilitch needs to tell the Tigers to fully embrace a true rebuild or a true rebirth of this franchise. And these comments don't any way, shape, or form go against what we've been saying. Chris Ilitch is interested in dollar bills. He's interested in revenue.
Sponsorships, too.
And he's interested in what he can do to make money off the franchise. Now, you can say that the rebuild isn't being done as planned or isn't a success. That's fair because you're looking at what they've been able to do in year one. It hasn't been much, but nobody expected that much out of them. So, this is one of those situations where the true question or the true answer to that question can't be realized. How is the rebuild going? Well, of course it's going great right now because you're in stage one. Everybody that's rebuilding in stage one is at the same spot, bad. So, in that regard, yes, they're where all other rebuilds are at this point. It's going to be what happens in the years to come that really bears out the fruit of their labor, so to speak, when they're bringing up these kids like Matt Manning, Cal Funkhauser, Bo Burrows, Franklin Perez. I can keep going down the list, but those guys are the ones that are going to determine if your rebuild is a success. Because if those guys come up to the major leagues and stink, or they never get up to the major leagues because they're traded or they just don't cut it, then that's when you look at it and say, well, they probably haven't done a great job. People aren't really a big fan of Avila's move. I'm one of those people that is a wait-and-see person. I don't like to get too far out of my skis because we don't know what this rebuild holds. You have a bunch of guys right now that are playing the minor league system. They're going to be dependent on here coming in, like I said, 2020 is the earliest. They should start to see the true results of this rebuild. But Chris Ilitch, if he has his way and is still the owner of the team, is going to be more concerned with what does the bottom line say? Am I making money? Am I doing what I can to maximize this asset financially? And everybody knows that sports is business. Everybody knows that there are ulterior motives just instead of not only putting a competitive team on the field, but also you have to realize a profit because that's the business of Major League Sports. But at the same time, if you're not putting a consistently competitive product on the field, you're also not going to have people that want to watch it. So if this rebuild starts to go south and next year they turn out worse or just the same as they have this year, those numbers are going to start to decline. And if Chris Ilitch is still the owner at that time, or if there's another person that's the owner, are they going to want to see that? Or are they going to be impatient enough, if it's a new owner, to want to infuse some cash into the situation and try to accelerate that process? So, to make a very long-winded story short, it's Chris Ilitch cares about money, and at this point, there's not really much to combat what he's saying because at this point, that's all you can look at.
Yep. And thus far, in Jeff Moss's article, the statistics show. Yet the statistics of these players that in the Tigers farm system are not very good, to say the least, and that proves why the Tigers rebuild is not going well.
Well, of course. Their statistics aren't going to be good because they're not expected to be. I don't think Heimer Candelario is going to go 30 and 100. I don't think that Michael Fulmer is going to win 20 games. You can't necessarily take these statistics and say, well, this is a bad rebuild in the sense that these guys are terrible. Of course they're terrible because it's either their first experience with the major league level of play or their rejects that have been picked off that pile to fill their roster. They're going to be bad. That's not really a surprise. It's more the fact that if you're proud of the way the rebuild's going, you're basically telling me that you're really happy that you tore down the team and relieved yourself of salary, and now you have younger players playing for much cheaper. Okay, it's a success in that regard. But if you're truly about putting a competitive product on the field and growing the franchise to re-achieve the heights that they had less than a decade ago, is it too early to tell? Yes, in my mind it is. But you also have to look at what's happening on the field right now to be able to try to predict what that rebuild is going to look like in 2 years. And, that's when you start to think, are we trying to jump ourselves ahead of the gun here, creating a rebuild when, of course, in this stage of that rebuild, and pretty much any other rebuild you're going to do, especially with baseball, this is what it's going to look like. You're not going to be good. You're going to be bad. And you're going to be stockpiling assets so that when it comes time to be good again, a lot of those players that you picked up in those trades are going to be making contributions to the Major League team.
Yep. Ed, anything to add? No? Okay.
No, not so much. Not so much.
All right.
Everything else was needed to be said was said.
Yep, that's true. So, that's Tigers talk. Now we transition to college football.
Touchdown, MSU!
Michigan State had their bye week. The Spartans are now ranked 24th, but they are at undefeated Indiana. The Hoosiers, Saturday at 7:30 on BTN in Bloomington, Indiana. The Hoosiers are not in the top 25, but they're undefeated, whereas MSU is 1-1 overall. This is the first Big Ten matchup for the Spartans, and probably for the Hoosiers as well, but most importantly for the Spartans. So we're going to preview that right about now. Ed, we'll start with you again.
Yeah, I will say for MSU, this was a much-needed bye week. After the two very poor games that they had to start the season, of course, the tight win against Utah State, and then the embarrassing performance against Arizona State, where they lost by a field goal, 16-13, after being outscored by 13 points in the fourth quarter. So this was a much-needed break that gave them a chance to reevaluate some stuff, really look over measures of how things can be approached and possibly changed as we go about this season, such as play calling and how certain plays and schemes can and need and don't need to be fouled. And really a factor of decisions, late game decision making, all those factors that were in play that lost you that game against Arizona State and almost lost you that game against Utah State as well. So, and they got to be on their A game here because they're coming in against the Indiana team that's 3-0. Yes, I know that's coming against the likes of FIU and Ball State, but Virginia is a name. Okay, and that's a name that has a recognizable fan base to some degree. And Virginia and Indiana was able to beat that team while giving up less than 20 points. And trust me, this is coming from someone on personal experience that has watched this Indiana team give Michigan fits over the past few years. This is a team you don't want to play around with. The spread says MSU plus 4.5, but I gotta be careful. I gotta tell you. The way these games are often played, I think, wasn't it the last time that MSU went to Bloomington and it was a night game? Indiana beat them, or at least made it very close. So they got to be real careful with this one. I'm not trusting a 4.5 point spread on a Saturday night primetime game, it's essentially homecoming, but it's a Big Ten, it's a conference opener at home on BTN. So fans are going to be excited. I'm not sure that was the right situation to come back into after the situation you had going to Arizona State. The only difference being is you're going to deal with field temperatures that'll be less than humid. So that might be one reason, the element to help you out here. But other than that, yeah, MSU I think is going to have their hands full yet again. But it should be more than enough. They have enough talented players and the right coaches where, even if it is a back and forth type of game, MSU should be able to have enough to pull out the victory.
Right. Buck, how about you?
Yeah, I mean, you look at Michigan State and how their last memory on the football field is that disastrous collapse against Arizona State, and then they get a bye week to try to sort everything out. Bye weeks are one of those things that if you're a coach, if they come early in the season where Michigan State's fall, it can be sometimes a blessing in disguise because you can nip some problems in the bud before they get really advanced and you don't have any time to prepare and get rid of them. On the other side, obviously, guys aren't really banged up by week 2, and you sometimes like those bye weeks later on so that you can get guys healthy for the stretch run. It is what it is. The schedule is what it is, and they have their bye week and they'll prepare for Indiana. Indiana's 3-0, as Edward mentioned. Not real strong competition, being Florida International, a bereft of talent Virginia team under Bronco Mendenhall, and then they really ripped into Ball State, where Ball State the previous week gave Notre Dame all they wanted more. So the transitive property sometimes, I don't like using it, but you just kind of have to use it as far as the sample size that we've been provided right now. Indiana is a team that when you play them, it's just not a fun time. You're not expecting to go in there and have an easy time. Teams traditionally that have gone to Indiana and played, it's just usually a tougher game than people want to give it credit for. Mentioning the fact that Michigan State, the last time they went into Indiana, they lost that game at Bloomington, but that was also during their disastrous 3-9 season. Guys were hurt. They didn't have a lot of manpower at that point, so not only was it 2 years ago, but it's really hard to judge results based on those things because Michigan State was in the throes of one of its worst seasons in recent vintage. So, to say that it's going to be a tough game because they played them 2 years ago and lost is a little bit of a broad brush stroke. All of that considered, Michigan State's going to have to come prepared. They're going to have to come to play. Memorial Stadium in Bloomington is notorious for not being full because not a lot of people want to go watch Indiana football. But the people that are there probably will be very vocal and excited for their team that's 3-0 heading into the Big Ten opener. Michigan State is going to have to combat that. They're going to want to take the crowd out early. And to do that, they're going to have to be explosive on offense. And that's not something that we've seen from them really in the first 2 weeks. Yeah, they put up 38 against Utah State, but that was at home. That was in the opener. And their defense really really kind of contributed that and lent themselves to having to score that many points. I don't think that Michigan State wanted to get into a shootout. They're not a team that likes to do that, but they had to. Same thing when Michigan plays them. Michigan doesn't like to get in shootouts either, but a lot of times when they play Indiana, that tends to be what happens because that's just how Indiana plays. They want to get you out of your comfort zone, and even though they might not succeed in winning, it's typically a tougher battle than you expected. I think Michigan State should win this game. When you're talking about a 4.5-point spread, you're using only what the sample size is available to you if you're a person laying those lines. And you're basically saying this is not a toss-up game, but you think that Michigan State's going to have to go down to the wire to win it with a 4.5-point spread. So this is going to be one of those games, I think, for Michigan State that for them to succeed, they're going to have to get out early. They're going to have to be explosive on offense, get big chunk plays, and take the crowd out of it. And then when they can do that, then revert back to their conservative or their close to the best play calling and really kind of hold them at bay and win the football game that way. If they get into another shootout, Indiana is not Utah State, and that may not bode well for them. So for Michigan State, their perfect scenario would be to jump out front, have big plays that take out the crowd, and then just kind of play what I call a trestle ball and milk the clock away and come away with a victory. This is not going to be an easy game for Michigan State, I don't think, but I think that they should be able to win handily. I think they should be able to cover the spread. My prediction on Michigan State right now, I think this game is going to be ballpark of a 31-20 victory, somewhere in that neighborhood. I don't think this is going to be a defensive struggle in any sense of the imagination, but I don't think that Indiana has enough firepower and weapons available to them to combat Michigan State if they have to come from behind.
Ed, your prediction?
Yeah, I'm expecting a close one on this one. I think this could be right down to the wire, as it was last time. I say MSU and a close one, 28-27.
I want to make it fair and go 30-24 MSU. So, speaking of Michigan,
Touchdown, Michigan!
They beat the Southern Methodist Mustangs to the Wolverines 45-20. The defense got a little bit dicey, but some cornerback named Metellus, although he committed an ugly pass interference penalty at first, he stepped it up afterwards and started developing. He took a pick six to the house right afterwards. And he covered the receiver a lot of times. Donovan Peoples-Jones scoring the touchdown hat trick. SMU somehow hung around, but Michigan, in the end, put a little extra icing on the cake. And the Wolverines improved to 2-1 overall. Ed, you got to be impressed with Donovan Peoples-Jones, who's starting to develop. Metellus starting to develop. The Wolverines' offense taking advantage of yet another almost easy team.
Yes, it was. And these are the games you had to do so to get yourself ready for that next test of games, that stretch of opponents coming in a few weeks from now. These are basically, even some of these conference games, these are overblown, these are glorified scrimmages that you have to take advantage of in any and all facets. And I really like how the offense seems to be coming into their groove of expanding I think the coach will expand the playbook a little bit more. I do wish there was instances where it can't be so noticeable. Wow, you're going to be running a power run or an ISO dive where it could get you in trouble in short yardage situations because what the other team, they know exactly what play you're going to run. So I wouldn't mind on those obvious down situations instead of like if it's a 1st and 10 or 2nd and 7, 2nd and 8. How about a little play action? I understand getting those 3 yards in the cloud of dust to break up actual third down situations, but still, if more teams are going to sniff those out and thus disrupt the play and backtrack your progress of setting up those magical third downs, you got to mix that up in your play calling. That's what led to those 4th down situations because we weren't able to convert those third down and short situations because they knew what run play specifically you were calling. But they were able to march on through that, and between Shea Patterson, seemingly finding the weapons that are there for him. He's developing a good bond with guys like Donovan Peoples-Jones and Zach Gentry. He's able to depend on guys like Chris Evans and even what was this guy's name, number 13, who's
Metellus?
No, that's 14. That's the quarterback. Yeah, Wilson, the number 13, the running back. Those two filling in for an injured Karan Higdon. Higdon did not play a snap in that game. That must have been a late time decision because he must have not felt so well in warm-ups to where, okay, no need, don't worry about it. And Evans and Wilson were able to do their job, do their duty well. So it was nice to see the running backs carry the load without their most, essentially close to every down back that you can get in Karan Higdon. Taylor brought up the point of how the defense did not look particularly well. Granted, giving up 20 points to SMU isn't quite an accomplishment, but when you consider the fact that they only give those up in one-score spurts at a time, like, say, 7 points in the second, 6 points in the third, and then another 7 in the fourth, it wasn't as if it was a back-and-forth type of shootout. Michigan thoroughly dominated this game in offense and defense, especially with the pick six by Metellus near the end of the first half that essentially ended the game right then and there and ended SMU's hopes and chances to try and make it a comeback. And even when they did try to score a touchdown, Michigan charged right back down the field, and down the Peoples-Jones got his third TD right then and there. And effectively, it ended the game. So, another good game for Michigan for them to do what they got to do. And they even got more help coming up with these next slate of games because you're going to be facing a Nebraska team who's 0-3. Okay, they've been objectively terrible to start this season. After that, you're gonna face a Northwestern team that's 1-2, and then you're gonna face a Maryland team who, they're 2-1, but they just lost to Temple, freaking Temple. Okay, so those are your last three games that you had before you jumped into the heavy barrage of Wisconsin, Michigan State, and Penn State to close out October and start November. But, you're looking at a good spot to where, the Notre Dame loss stung, but it didn't end your season, and you're still in the top 20 rankings. As long as you take care of your business, you'll still be a respectable 5-1 with a big game, or the stretch of big games coming up against conference opponents to where it could very well make or break your season with how you perform these games. But if you do well and if you win at least the two games that against the teams within your own division, then your chances are still ahead of you of, trying to get to Indy and win a Big Ten championship, regardless of if you end up the playoff or not. But the goal for this team should be, and always should be, contend for and win Big Ten championships. And since the goal is still ahead of them as of now, and I expect that goal to still be ahead of them when they get to Wisconsin, presumably at 5-1, that should be their main focus and drive from here on out to the end of this season, even if it means taking on a top 3, top 4 ranked OSU team at the end of the year. That's all it comes down to. You want to go to Michigan, you want to play in the big time. These are the expectations that come along with it.
Pretty sure those two teams that Maryland beat were pretty damn easy.
Yeah, so it's again, even if the record says they're good, but it's more mirage more than it's a mirage more than anything. So I would expect, and the fact that it's at the big house too, I expect Michigan to find a way to handle that one. Probably won't be as easy, but because compared to the other two, like say Nebraska or Northwestern, but it should be a relatively good performance to where you can get a win.
Yeah. Buck, follow up.
Well, you've got Nebraska coming in 0-2 for the first time in forever. They lost their starting quarterback in the first game against Colorado. They don't know if he's going to play. My bet is that he will. Adrian Martinez hurt his knee in the Colorado game, did not play last week against Troy, or if he did, he played very little. Didn't especially watch a lot of that game, but either way, he was not a big factor in that game, even if he did play. So you've got an injured quarterback at best playing in this game against Michigan. So things are changing. Nebraska, Scott Frost, the new head coach, obviously has his work cut out for him. And if you're Michigan, the game against SMU, it was choppy. It probably wasn't pretty to a lot of people that watched it. But when you look at the final result, you had to be pleased with some of the things that they were able to do. Yes, a lot of people don't like the play calling. You don't like the fact that they keep stubbornly running the ball into stacked defenses and not really changing what they're trying to do. But that's part and parcel is what you're going to get with Jim Harbaugh. I mean, that's the thing that people don't understand. It's maddening. It's frustrating, but it's not going to change. He's not going to start throwing out a spread gun, 5 wide receivers the entire game just because people don't like them running power football. That all said, Nebraska's coming in as an 0-2 team with their starting quarterback either out or injured, which is going to give the defense license to tee off and try to get him out of the game by any legal means necessary. And if they can get to the second level, I mean, if they can't beat Troy at home with their backup quarterback, they don't have much of a chance against the Michigan team on the road in a Big Ten game. So this is not going to be a walkover necessarily, but if Michigan does what it's supposed to do on defense, people will start to forget what the offense is doing simply because the defense dominates. The offense doesn't have to be that good. And that's kind of been the theme for Michigan over the course of Jim Harbaugh's tenure is the offense isn't supposed to be a knock them down, drag them out, dominating force. They're there to make sure that you don't lose the football game. And that's how they play, how they call plays. That's what they do on their schemes. And it's not going to change. As frustrating and maddening as it is at times, that's how they're going to operate. So when you're talking about this Nebraska game, I don't expect to see a lot of variation. Probably going to try to hammer away at the middle of that Nebraska defense early. And that's going to open up some play action. And as you saw last week with Donovan Peoples-Jones, when you have the play action, he's going to get free. If he's on man coverage, there's not a lot of guys that are going to be able to cover him. Now, when they get into Big Ten play, playing some of the premier teams in the league, that may change. But the fact remains that if that threat is there, they're going to have to respect it. And that's going to change what you do on defense in front of your front, in terms of your front seven. So I think that Michigan still has some ways to go. As far as their offense, you remember that Shea Patterson has only played 3 games at quarterback for the University of Michigan. And I look at the Jake Rudock situation back when Harbaugh started. Their offense was not very good when he came along. And that was not even with Harbaugh's recruits. I mean, Jake Rudock was really his first recruit that he had, so to speak. So, you're looking at guys that on offense, this is very similar to that campaign. And I think that as Patterson matures, as he grows with the team, I mean, you can only play spring ball and you can only go into practice and learn so much about your teammates. You really have to go out in the field and find out how they react in game time situations. There are some holes that need to be fixed. There are some guys that need to play better. But the overall result right now is that Michigan's 2-1. And they're going to be playing a Nebraska team right now who is shorthanded. They're in a time of transition as well. And it's going to be Michigan's game to win or lose. I don't think Nebraska's going to come in and do anything necessarily to win that game or wrest it from the grasp of Michigan. I think it's going to be more, if Michigan makes this close, it's going to be on them rather than Nebraska. It's going to be mistakes that are made. It's going to be opportunities that are lost. Those are the type of things that are going to keep this game close. If Michigan hits on all cylinders, Nebraska is going to be very, very hard-pressed to make this a game. So my prediction on this, if I had to be so bold, I think Michigan's going to win this one. It's probably going to be relatively the same as it was last week. I'm thinking this is going to be a 31-13 victory.
Ed?
Yeah, I think Nebraska, they're not going to show quite as much fight as SMU did. And SMU, they knew they were shorthanded, they knew they were underdog, they knew they were probably going to lose, but they didn't come scared. They came to fight. I don't think you're going to see that with Nebraska this week. They look too beaten down and downtrodden, just flat out broken already. So I expect Michigan to drop the hammer on them. I'd say a 42-17 type of score.
I'm going to go 42-21. And the only question that I have in terms of Shea Patterson is how greatly has Shea Patterson developed through the first 3 games?
Well, I mean, he came from a system that was different than what Ole Miss wanted to do. And coming from Ole Miss to Michigan, I mean, that's a whole different ballgame, not only in the scheme, but also the level of competition on the defensive side. I mean, yeah, the SEC, I think, is overrated at times, but still, I mean, they have great football players, and they have defenses that have speed to burn, and that's a whole different ballgame when you're talking about playing against teams in the Big Ten. I think that Shea Patterson has done what has been asked of him, and he's still learning as the season goes on, too. I mean, you can sit there and study the playbook and do all these things, but it really comes down to game situations, and it also comes down to the coaches. Are you calling plays that put him in the best position to succeed? And I think so far for Shea Patterson, he's shown the ability to make throws that Michigan quarterbacks have not been able to make in some time. And the other factor is that Shea Patterson right now is running an offense that is trying to be tailored to his strengths. Power football is one of the staples of Michigan football. Jim Harbaugh's not going to go away from that, but at the same time, they're finding out what Shea Patterson does well in their system. You can see what he does well in other team systems, but that doesn't always translate to what he's going to do for you. So I think this is one of those stretches for Michigan in the next 3 games where they're really going to be able to kind of take the training wheels off for him and really let him try to explore the space, make some gambling plays, call some plays that may or may not work, but at least let you see exactly what you have. Because after week 6, when they have to play Wisconsin, that's when the real season starts for Michigan. I mean, they have to win all these games in front of them, obviously, and you can't look past it. But that's when you really start to look, okay, what do we have? Because we're going to get into a real white-knuckle situation where we need him to make this play, or we need Shea Patterson to do the right thing. And if you can, in these next 3 games, find that out, or at least get an idea of what he's capable of, yeah, we know he can make the throws that a lot of quarterbacks have not been able to make for Michigan in the past decade. But that's only one facet, and so it's the leadership portion. It's the fact that he's going to be the guy out there taking all the blame or getting all the glory, and that's vastly different than what he was having to face at Ole Miss. Because Ole Miss, being an SEC middle-of-the-road team, they're not expected to do a whole lot in terms of the conference and the national championship picture. He's coming into a whole different level of expectation, whether that be warranted or not. And I think that Shea Patterson, to this point, hasn't done anything wrong. Sure, he's missed plays. He's a kid, just like all these other kids that are playing this game. He's going to make mistakes. The question is, do the mistakes happen at times where you can recover, or do they happen at times where you can't get those back and you end up losing the game because of it?
Right. So we're going to switch from the Big Ten to the MAC.
Western Michigan Broncos football.
Oh, do we have to?
Yeah. Yeah. Western just absolutely demolished Delaware State, the Hornets, 68-0 at Waldo Stadium in Kalamazoo. This is just an easy team that Western took on, and they finally got a win. That was just like a gift on the schedule, on a silver platter.
It really was. It was definitely needed schedule relief, compared to opening the season against Syracuse and Michigan. That's a 1-2. That's a good 1-2, definitely to open up with for sarcastic reasons. But now with this one out the way, giving them a chance to take out some much needed aggression on someone. Now we've got these teams coming up here. You got Georgia State. Okay, that's such a layup. I don't even want them to play that game. That's such a layup. And then you open up conference schedule of Miami of Ohio. Now, it is interesting to note that the game of Eastern is coming up in about 3 weeks. So that could be an early table setter for how this whole conference may go in terms of who's going to have the more momentum as they go out throughout the rest of the conference schedule. So it'll be a good statement game, if you want to say, for Western to really establish themselves as a potential conference favorite if they were to open up well against Miami of Ohio and then beat Eastern. So it's necessarily, to borrow a line from Art D'Antonio, their goals are still ahead of them. So let's see how they perform.
Yeah, totally out of hand was that game. Seriously, and got another easy opponent in Georgia State Saturday at 2. It's on the road, but Western, I think, has got this one in the bag. I don't even know who Georgia State is anyway.
If they gave up more than 21 points, they should be ashamed of themselves.
Right.
Yeah, Georgia State right now is 1-2. Their only win against Kennesaw State. That tells you kind of all you need to know about this game. Memphis routed them last Friday, 59-22, and NC State had their way with them as well. Georgia State not a strong team. Western should win this one easily. And like Ed said, this is the table-setting portion of the schedule. They opened up with 2 Power 5 conference teams. They get their own cupcake portion of the schedule coming up last week and this week. They go to Miami, Ohio to play that game, and then they have the Eastern game coming up, like you said, in 3 weeks. That'll be kind of the watershed moment, I guess, for Western as it pertains to this season so far, because Eastern right now playing good football, and if they don't have any stumbling blocks from here on out, they could be playing a team in Eastern right now who is going to be the surprise of the MAC to that point.
Speaking of Eastern Michigan
Eagles football.
The Eagles put up a fight in Buffalo, but they still lost 35-21 to the Bulls. Eastern just punched it in to only trail by 7 at halftime, but that's as close as they could come. They kept it close, but they just couldn't tie it up.
It was just quite weird to see. It was like, in a way, they were having a bit of a hangover from that Purdue game. Did it cause them to lose focus? I don't know. You want that to be an excuse, but still, that was just not the same team as it looked the previous week. Not just that, just so many offensive sputters, and it was well evidenced in the fact that they had a 21-point explosion in the second quarter, and aside from that, they didn't score anything else except for a garbage time touchdown. It was just, major ineffectiveness and not a good response to a great win you had against Purdue. And even so, after that, you got even more tougher rebound chance coming up with this game against San Diego State, which is going to be at their crib at night, 10:30 Eastern start. So, it's not ESPN, but it is a little bit of flavor of Pac-12 after dark. And it's that same trap that Michigan State fell into last week against, of course, not last week, but the week before against Arizona State. So Eastern, they got to be very careful with this one.
Well, they do. When you look at the Buffalo game, just a really weird game. Buffalo, as I mentioned, kind of one of those middle-of-the-road MAC teams, just like Eastern actually was projected to be. Actually, Eastern was probably projected to be lower than Buffalo. But, Tyree Jackson, the local kid from Mona Shores here in Muskegon, they weren't a bad team, but you're right. I mean, Eastern, after that win over Purdue, really looked, not to put any bad vibes out there, but they look hungover. That can mean different things for college students, but they just did not look like the same team that played a Big Ten opponent the week before in their place and won that game. And Buffalo came out early and often. Eastern was able to kind of stem the tide in the second quarter, coming back with 21 points of their own, but really just didn't get off to a good start. And by the time it was really coming down to crunch time, it was too late. And Buffalo had built their sizable lead and then fended off Eastern Michigan, and was able to come out with a 1-score victory. It was just a really weird game. 3 touchdowns within the span, I think, of 30 seconds at one point by the teams. It was just one of those games where, if you're Eastern, things got away from them quick, and they just never were able to recover. Not a good look for them after beating Purdue. But the beat marches on. You have to keep playing the schedule that you're afforded. And I think for Eastern, this is going to be a big statement for them, simply because they had the high of beating Purdue and now they have the low of performing against Buffalo as they did. Not to say that Buffalo necessarily didn't deserve to win, but the way that Eastern Michigan performed left a lot of questions out there. And so that all said, Eastern Michigan really, this week, this is a very important game for them simply because now they can't be a roller coaster team and expect to have a lot of success. You can't be great one week and be bad the next week and expect to have a lot of success. So I think for Eastern Michigan, this is going to be a game that they're going to really have to buckle down. And I'm not saying that they can't, but we'll see what happens because Eastern Michigan, for all intents and purposes, they have to keep the momentum going because you beat a Big Ten team in non-conference play, and a San Diego State team that just beat Arizona State, who had beaten Michigan State. So again, I don't like those transitive properties, but San Diego State is a team that a lot of people didn't expect a lot from, having graduated Donnell Pumphrey and Rashad Penny in consecutive years. So people didn't think much of them. And now you're looking at this team that just beat Arizona State a week after they had a big win against Michigan State. The hangover rule, I guess it would apply here. Arizona State didn't come out to play against San Diego State. Even though there was a very controversial ending to that game, they ended up losing that game. And now San Diego State will play Eastern Michigan. And this is one of those games. You're going out west. You're playing late. It's in a different climate than you're used to. These are the types of games that if you're going to be a big-time football program, or at least try to be a good big-time football program, you've got to come out with some effort. And this is going to be really a big test for Chris Creighton and his crew because this is not the type of game that you want on your schedule right after the performance they had against Buffalo. But it is what it is. Here's the schedule. You got to play it. And I think that for Eastern Michigan, this is going to be a difficult game. And if they lose this one, their next game isn't any easier because they'll play perennial MAC standout Northern Illinois in their next game after that. And that's no easy pickings either. So Eastern Michigan's time is now, and this is going to be a difficult game for them, and we'll see what happens.
Yeah, they can't afford any slip-ups between now and Western.
No, absolutely not. Eastern at SDSU, Saturday at 10:30 p.m. Eastern Time on CBS Sports Network, technically. Speaking of Northern Illinois.
Central Michigan Chippewas football.
The Central Michigan Chippewas lost to the Northern Illinois Huskies 24-16 in DeKalb, Illinois. Winless regardless, but Tommy Lazzaro started under center, kept the game close, gave the offense a little bit of a chance to tie the game up, but they failed miserably. But the Chippewas are the only MAC team in the Mitten that remains winless.
It's quite unfortunate because, like you mentioned, with the comeback opportunity they had, it started, really, if anything, it was sparked by the fact that Tony Paul-Jean was yanked for Tommy Lazzaro. And when you look at how Paul-Jean has performed this season, when you take in the fact that he had an adjusted QBR of 39.2 against Kentucky, and then a QBR of 18.1 against Kansas.
Yeah.
You follow that up with the performance that you had, which, by the way, you had 4 picks in that one, and then you follow it up with an absolute dreadful performance of this, 5 for 11, not even less than 50% of a completion percentage, and a QBR of 3.6. Yeah, you needed to be set down after that, and this may be a telltale sign of what they're going to go from here. I don't know if this is going to be a thing where he's going to get his job back next game, or this may be beginnings of a far bigger move. It's just still remaining yet to be seen.
I admire your honesty.
Also of note to where, what also Taylor was talking about, the winless season that might be upcoming for them. I don't want to go that far because there's there's some teams in the MAC that are just absolutely terrible. So you should have a good chance of at least beating one or two of those. And then you got a game against Maine coming up. A team that has lost, well, not lost, but they've won against teams like Western Kentucky, okay, and New Hampshire. So this should be a team to where, yeah, they're 2-0, but it's at your place, and they've faced even worse talent than what you are. So I think we should be able to give them a much better game and hopefully try to get a win against them, because after that, you got MSU. And if MSU, the way they've been playing, they're going to be looking to take out some heat and aggression on you. So you had better get this win now, because if you face MSU 0-4, you're going to not only go down 0-5, you're going to get smacked with an embarrassing display.
Embarrassing. Buck?
Yeah, I mean, this game, when you look at Northern Illinois, they did all they could to try to let Central Michigan win this game. It just didn't happen. Northern Illinois, a couple of bad punt snaps that ended up in only 3 points for the Chippewas, including a missed 25-yard field goal. Didn't play very well offensively. Their offensive line is quite porous. Leaf Fountain for the Chippewas had 18 tackles from his linebacker spot. He was everywhere. So he was really a big star on the defense, but that was it. I mean, they just didn't have a lot going for them. If you look at this game, it didn't feel like either team really wanted to win. Tony Poljan struggled out of the gate. They couldn't get moving, so they go to Lazaro, and he was able to get there within 15 yards of a potential tying score. A late interception, though, ended that dead, and he was able to move the ball. And really, for Tony Poljan and the Chippewas up to that point, before he was yanked, they hadn't been able to do anything on offense. And so I think if I'm John Bonamego, I'm probably looking at starting him next week. Or if they start Tony Poljan and he doesn't perform, probably the same thing happens. He gets yanked and Lazaro comes in. They might give Poljan one more chance and just kind of chalk it up to a bad game. But, I mean, that logic is kind of flawed, because he hasn't been good all of this season as Poljan. So I think that if you're Central Michigan and you really desperately want to win this game, I think you go with Lazaro.
Yeah.
And you try to see how far he can get you. I'm not saying that Central Michigan will win the game because of that, but he'll probably give you a better chance of that, not only because he's going to give some fresh perspective, and he looks like a little bit more of what the quarterback position that they're looking for at Central. A mobile quarterback that can run that offense instead of Poljan, who, even though he can technically be a mobile quarterback, he's a 6'5" or 6'7" kid, and there's a lot more of him to hit. So I think if you go with Lazaro, it gives you a better chance to win. But I think Central is just going to be. This is going to be one of those years that they struggle. They don't have an identity necessarily in offense. Defensively, the defense can only hold you into so many games at so many times. This is just going to be a rough sled. But this is one of those games where you look at Central Michigan and you started off poorly, and you've got to get the ship righted sooner rather than later. Otherwise, it's going to be a disastrous season. And as Ed mentioned, their schedule doesn't get any easier coming forward with Michigan State on the horizon and all of the in-state rivals that they have. This is just not looking good for the Chippewas right now. We'll see what happens on Saturday. But I think for Central Michigan, if they really want to win this game, they'll go with the starter with Lazaro. They won't start Poljan, because he's proven over 10 quarters that he cannot move them very effectively. They bring in the backup quarterback, and everybody's favorite player is a backup quarterback, and I know that. But he was able to move the ball effectively. Part of that due probably because they hadn't seen him on film, and part of that due because he played better. So I think you go with a hot hand, and this is not a team that you have the luxury of just sticking with your starter week in and week out. This is a time, if you're going to make a switch, if you're going to be able to do it now, this is the time, because if you try to do it later in the season, that season's already lost, and you're trying to find out what you're going to have for next year. And Lazaro, if I'm looking at the right thing, is a redshirt senior. So you better use him while you got him, because he's going to be gone.
Yeah. Tommy Lazaro has the unanimous edge over Tony Poljan. Period.
Agreed.
So, CMU home against Maine at Cali Short Stadium, 3 p.m. Eastern Time on ESPN+. Subscribe, people, and Chips fans. Hopefully my Chippewas finally get a win against Maine at home this season. They're probably not going to finish winless. They've got to beat Maine or else.
Yeah, you'd hope that they could beat an FCS school at home.
Yeah, I'm hoping a rout for God's sake. Their defense showed up quite a bit against Northern Illinois. Only allowed 24 points. They didn't give up that too many.
No, and there was a blocked punt that directly led to one of the touchdowns for Northern Illinois. So,
that's good defense.
The defense really, in essence, gave up 17. I know it says 24 on the scoreboard, but if you dive just a little bit deeper into the numbers, the defense was not put in great situations almost all game long. And they were able to hold fast and do what they had to do. But again, when you start out on offense like that with only 3 points, and Northern Illinois basically just handing you the ball inside their territory, you've got to come up with more than that, and they just couldn't. And that was really the key to their lack of success.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I'm not saying that things are looking up for the Chippewas, but their defense, if they keep that up against Maine and Tommy Lazzaro starts, I say the Chippewas win by at least 30. Maine is a gosh darn easy team. The Chippewas should have to handle those guys like a man, like a giant beanstalk handling such a tiny little marble. So, transitioning to pro football now.
Touchdown, Detroit Lions!
The Lions came so close to winning on the road, but they lost to the San Francisco 49ers 30-27. They kept it close for most of the game, understandably. They didn't have to deal with the opposing defense reading Stafford's signals this time, thankfully, but still, this is not the Lions dropped to 0-2. And I read on one of the big screens at Ruby Tuesday in Cadillac that 88% of all teams in the NFL that started 0-2 have missed the playoffs historically. And that tells you.
Yeah, it almost tells you that your season is over right then and there, which is, not too surprising because that was just another vintage Lions performance on top of the vintage Lions performance that they had the week before against the Jets. Whereas that one was one of the most disturbing, despicable, disgusting, and disrespectful things ever witnessed by a national televised audience. That was just a Tuesday for Lions fans. So to hear and follow that up with this gem was quite beautiful. Defensive penalties negating interceptions, your quarterback dropping fumbles out of nowhere, being down by double digits, players getting ejected, and then, of course, putting together a fruitless comeback that comes off with a 4-play tease at the end. It was just a typical Lions Sunday for me. So, another issue of me being so numb after rooting for this team for 20-plus years is that, you don't get – it's almost that you don't care phrase, but it's just a roll with the punches kind of flow. Like, yeah, this is my 9 and 5, watching this team just getting gut punched every single year. So I'm used to it by now.
Yeah, and the one significant ejection was LeGarrette Blount, one of the projected top running backs for the Lions, pushing a 49ers player, for God's sakes.
Yeah, not only doing so, but coming onto the field of play to do that. I mean, okay, Stafford gets hit. Well, it's the NFL. Quarterbacks are going to get hit, whether you think it was late or not. There's other ways to rectify that situation. One of them is not coming off the bench and pushing somebody. So, you talk about the Lions having another vintage performance. This was a game that you just look at how they performed, especially in the third quarter, coming out of the halftime break, and they were just flat. It was a close game at halftime. 13-10, and they come out in the third quarter and just play atrocious football. And that's the kind of stuff that when you bring in Matt Patricia as your head coach, one of the things that you think is going to happen is a guy who has been around a team like New England in his previous stop that was so masterful at making adjustments in the halftime locker room, or even micro adjustments during the game to combat what the other teams are doing. And it just looks to me like, and again, Matt Patricia's learning on the job because this is his first head coaching experience. But just the way that the San Francisco 49ers played in that third quarter as compared to how the Lions played, that's an indictment not only on the coaching staff but the players. You're coming out of the locker room in a halftime of a close game, and you do that in the third quarter, which precipitates the need for you to make a furious, desperate comeback in the fourth. The Lions football, and that's usually what they do, but it's kind of disheartening to see that they were able to be manipulated and manhandled coming out of the halftime locker room when one of the strong points that you thought that Matt Patricia had was adjusting to the opponent's tendencies and what he also thinks is going to be the adjustments, that in-game chess match that all coaches have. And I think that was really the schism of the game, was that they came out and just didn't do anything in that third quarter, and then San Francisco held on for dear life and was able to come away with a victory. The penalties to negate the interception was one thing, but when you're trying to make a comeback and you're trying to do those things and that kind of penalty happens, you're putting yourself in that position. If you're not putting yourself in a position to win, you can't complain about the officials, because regardless of if the call is right or not, you're in that position for a reason. The officials didn't put you down. The officials didn't make you come out of the locker room and play like crap. It just was. That's you. That's on the players. And right, and to try to pass off blame. Oh, they shouldn't have called that holding penalty. Well, you wouldn't have had to worry about it if you were playing football for the entire four quarters.
Yeah, it must have been the official's fault that Theo Riddick dropped 2 catches on that last drive. It must have been the official's fault that was the reason why.
Sarcasm.
Yeah, it wasn't the official's fault that Matthew Stafford missed, let's say 4 touchdown or potentially long games by missing receivers. He didn't have a great.
It was his fault that Matthew Stafford put himself in that position to get hit, which helped spur the LeGarrette Blount ejection. It must have been the official's fault for Stafford fumbling that ball the way he did. He must have been inspired by watching Jay Patterson versus Notre Dame.
More sarcasm.
Of what happened with Stafford and LeGarrette Blount. Can Kelly B. Hall Stafford? Can you just please not find need to comment on anything? I get it. It was your husband. But I'm willing to almost guarantee you, Barry Sinatch, you are not making that kind of a statement if that was someone else other than your man getting hit on that play. Stop it, Kelly. Stop it.
Well, I mean, she's proven time and again that, she's not really well-versed in the game of football. That all said, the Lions came through with yet another gut-wrenching performance, true to their franchise history. And they're coming into a game now against the Patriots. The circle is becoming complete with Patricia now facing his old boss, Bill Belichick. And this is a Patriots team that kind of got dressed down a little bit by the Jaguars. The Jaguars played a very good game on Sunday. I watched a pretty good portion of that. And this is a game now for the Patriots that is, I don't want to say it's a must-win, but they better not lose because they're facing a Lions team that is 0-2. They should be desperate. But in the same vein, the Patriots are also going to be desperate. They don't want to be heading into week 4, 1-2. They need to win this game just as much or more than the Lions because after last week's loss, their vulnerabilities have been exposed. They have some things that they need to go to work on. And to help cure some of those ails, they've made a trade with the Cleveland Browns today to get Josh Gordon for what amounts to a bag of hammers. I think it was a 5th-round pick. And now he potentially could be active for that game against the Detroit Lions in a secondary that has lost Darius Slay to a brain injury. That was not very good before they lost Darius Slay. They aren't going to get any better by losing him. And so they're adding another weapon just in time to play this game against the Detroit Lions.
Josh Gordon by name.
Defensive coordinator Matt Patricia. You don't think that Bill Belichick is salivating at the fact that he's going to have a brand new toy to play with, that Matt Patricia doesn't know what he's going to be able to do with him? I mean, yeah, he's going to have a real limited understanding of the playbook. He's not going to be in for every snap, but it's just another thing that they're going to have to prepare for. And the one thing, if you're an NFL fan at all, and you know what the Patriots can do, it's take new toys and really get the most out of them. And at a time where the Lions right now are floundering, struggling, and trying to find their identity, they have the Patriots coming in, and this is not a Patriots team that is complacent. This is not a Patriots team that is resting on its laurels. They know they have a tough job ahead of them, and especially after the performance against the Jaguars, have a bad taste in their mouths themselves, and they want to get rid of it very badly.
Yeah, so let's see. Let's look at this recipe here. You have an angry Tom Brady plus a Bill Belichick waiting for a matchup like this, plus a team that just added Josh Gordon, plus a team that just lost their best cornerback and who is just struggling to find themselves and almost is ready to essentially call in the clown show because I've been hearing Yankee sacks all on this season. So yeah, this is an easy call to make. I expect New England to blow the doors off of Ford Field this upcoming Sunday night, and I'll even go further beyond that. Because this past game, this was your best, really your second best chance. Because after the Jets game, which was your best chance, this is now your second best chance. You blew both of those chances. So now you're looking at a potential 0-5 hole. Okay, you lost those two games. You got the Pats coming up. You got to go to Dallas week 4, and then week 5 you're playing the Packers. And I don't care if Aaron Rodgers is going to be on one leg or not. He's still Aaron friggin' Rodgers. And I bet on one leg he may still be able to outperform Stafford. As sad as that statement may be, it may be accurate. So when you face all of those factors, take them all in consideration, yeah, this team may very well be 0-5. And if you're looking at the broader scale of the schedule itself, there's a good chance they may be 0-8 halfway through the season. I mean, when you think of the fact that the Bears did add Khalil Mack, the Vikings are still the Vikings, and the Seahawks, listen, the one winnable game out of these first 8, maybe the Seahawks, believe it or not, because Cam is going to come in here. He's going to run wild on you. You're going to lose to the Vikings, and you may very well lose to the Bears, who they're 2-0 right now. We thought they were going to be that place in competing for the basement in the division this year. Now they're looking like a team that says, we want a piece of this too. We just went all in with Khalil Mack. We're coming for you in Minnesota. We're coming for you in Green Bay. What have the Lions done? Friggin' nothing. So yeah, when you look at what this schedule, what they've done so far, do not call me surprised if they start this season out 0-8.
Yeah, I mean, the Bears are 1-1 after tonight's win and beating the aforementioned Seahawks. They got to Russell Wilson early and often, and Khalil Mack's only going to get better, so is the rest of that defense. The Vikings, they're obviously I would say they're probably the top team in the division, closely followed by the Packers. And then, as you mentioned, the Cowboys, who are looking to be at least improved from what the dumpster fire that they were last year. You have the Panthers. This is not an easy schedule. If you're the Lions, and you only can take it one game at a time. But you look at that Patriots game, that doesn't look good for you. And then you go on to play at Dallas, which has never been a great place for Detroit to play. And then you have after that the Packers. I mean, the hits just keep on coming.
And even before the Seahawks game, even before the Seahawks game, they got to go to Miami. The Dolphins are 2-0 themselves.
Oh my God, the Lions face tough team after tough team after tough team. And let me touch on the Patriots game that's coming up. That game, forthcoming, should not be a primetime televised game of any sort. Whether it's on NBC or ESPN Monday Night Football or the game of the week on Fox Sunday late afternoon. It should not be a prime time. The Patriots and the Lions is a mismatch in general at its entirety. Period.
Well, the only reason it's a primetime game is the obvious storylines. If the Lions had hired anybody else but Matt Patricia as their head coach, this would be a 1 o'clock game.
Yeah, 1 o'clock game, period.
Is going to be put into prime time, and that's why they did it. Nobody can ever predict the season. Obviously, I don't think that people thought the Lions would play this poorly in the first 2 games than even the preseason under Matt Patricia. But here we are, and this is going to be another chance for the Lions to just get embarrassed on national television.
Yeah.
Oh, you thought the Jets was bad. You never dealt with psychos, huh?
Right. And remember when the Lions played the Atlanta Falcons Sunday at 1 on Fox last year in Week 3? They still lost, even though it was a close one. And there was no guarantee that the Lions were going to win anyway. And that touchdown and on a side note, to top the cherry on top of the Sunday, that touchdown what's called back was actually right. Again, Falcons cornerback Brian Poole, according to ESPN, touched Golden Tate on the shoulder when he was down short of the goal line, period. Even though there might have been 11 seconds left, there was still no guarantee that the Lions were going to score a touchdown on 4th and 1 because their offense was beyond crap in the red zone inside the 5-yard line the whole season. Period.
Well, I mean, when it comes down to it, this is not the optimal primetime game. But you're talking about the storyline, the Matt Patricia, Bill Belichick thing. Patriots got a new toy. They get to display him on national television, potentially, if they can get him active. The Lions in the first 3 weeks are going to have 2 nationally televised games, and they might lose by 30 points in both of them.
Right.
Yeah, this is going to be a good homecoming weekend for Tom Brady. He's going to come in, he's going to watch Michigan smack up Nebraska on Saturday, and then again on Sunday night, he's going to drop his pants and do a number on the Lions. So, win-win for Mr. Brady.
Yeah, that being said, where the hell are all those Detroit versus everybody homers at? Probably nowhere, but wherever they're at, they can blow us.
They should have been burning those hoodies instead of their Nike merchandise.
Yeah, absolutely. So we end this episode on a grand finale. That was amazing, unlike last week. Gentlemen, thanks very much for stepping up, especially on MAC football talk, Eastern, Western, and especially my Central Michigan Chippewas. Our next episode live Monday at 10:30 because the Lions are playing the Patriots Sunday Night Football 8:20 on NBC. Sunday Night Football, Al Michaels and Chris Collinsworth on the call. Michelle Tafoya on the sideline too. So, excellent job, guys. Let's keep up all those routines. If we have to add it even more, so be it. Get some rest, gentlemen. I'll talk to you next week.
No problem. Take care, guys.
Yep. And that is episode 334 of the Michigan Sports Truth Podcast. Before we sign off, we want to remind everyone to share this episode and our entire podcast on social media and have their friends share that as well, because we want to tell them that the Michigan Sports Truth Podcast is searching for a wider online audience that is fans of sports, especially our teams in the state of Michigan, whether it be the Tigers or the Lions, Wolverines, Spartans, Chippewas, Broncos, Eagles. So please, spread the word about the Michigan Sports Truth Podcast on Spreaker, SoundCloud, iHeartRadio, Apple Podcasts via iTunes, Google Play on its podcast app, and Spotify, as well as its verified Facebook page, the Michigan Sports Truth Podcast, and its Twitter, Periscope, and Instagram accounts at Michigan_Truth. I'm Taylor Phillips. Follow me on Twitter and Instagram at DT2Phillips, Buck Gino on Twitter at BuckGino3, 3 I's for Roman numerals, and Ed Smith on Twitter and Instagram at EdSmith313. We'll talk to you next week on episode 335. Thanks very much for listening, downloading, and sharing. Stay smart and tough, Michiganders. TTFN, ta-ta for now.
The Michigan Sports Truth Podcast does not represent or defame any of the teams it covers. It only detects, exposes, and reveals honest, actual, and hidden truth, facts, and statistics about them.
Mission complete.